Hello everybody, Joe here at Riverside. Now, one of our favourite things here to cook and eat is Mexican food, and one of the great things about it is that it's hyper-regionalised. So you get dishes which are really commonly eaten in one part of Mexico that are less commonly eaten elsewhere, and sometimes even dishes which aren't recognised necessarily in some places as being Mexican food. You've got endless scope for tweaking. You can do Mexican-inspired food, you can do Mexican fusion where you mix it with other cuisines. So loads of options, great flavours, and we love it here. So today we've got the Traeger Ranger set up, and we're going to be cooking chalupas, which is one of these dishes I think which is commonly eaten in certain parts of Mexico. I know the regions of Hidalgo and Puebla, it's very common, and it's a fried tortilla with some salsa verde. Today we're doing a riff on Mexican salsa verde. Some chicken, in this case we've got leftover chicken, with some cheese and some white onion and coriander sprinkled over the top. This is apparently commonly eaten on Día de Muertos, which is known in English as Day of the Dead, and it's a Mexican celebration that dates back thousands of years pre-Spanish colonization, and it honours their deceased loved ones, which is obviously a lovely thing to do. So we'll get this fired up, get some of the ingredients going, and see you in a bit. So the first thing we need to do is get the salsa prepared. At this stage really we're just getting the components together, because once we actually prepare the final dish it all comes together very quickly and there won't be time to do anything else. So first things first, I've got the Ranger set up just with the grates on. Got some tomatoes, some white onion, some green pepper, and some garlic. Now, you do run the risk of these falling through the grates, so I'm just going to put them inside one of the pepper quarters. Shut the lid. This is running at 180 at the moment, so it'll get a bit of smoke, not too much. It's kind of just roasting them off. Usually these would be blanched in some water just to soften them and cook them through before we blend them up, but as we've got the thing running, why not get some live fire flavour in. So we'll let them run just until they're soft. Depending on what piece of kit you're using, it might take longer or shorter, so there's no time associated with this. It really is a case of just figuring out when they're soft, maybe they've got a little bit of colour, and then we'll see where we are. Now, in Mexican salsa verdes they use tomatillo, and something that you can do if you can't get hold of that is to use green tomatoes, maybe some citrus as well. We didn't get either in time to do this, so I've put the green peppers in for a bit of texture, a little bit of flavour, and I'll put some lime in later as well. So this is an approximation of a Mexican salsa verde. By no means is it authentic, but it should still taste great. The base ingredients for our salsa verde have been running for about 10 to 15 minutes now. I did just have a look at them. I flipped the onions over. They've got some lovely colour. The peppers are feeling nice and soft. They've got some colour. The tomatoes, are very soft. Garlic looking good. Now, these need to be blended down, so you want them to be quite soft, but they will get cooked again after they are blended. So we'll probably let them run maybe another 5 to 10 minutes, take them off, blend them, and get them into some oil. Our oil's nice and hot now, so all we need to do is get this into the pan. Shut the lid, leave it for a few minutes. You'll want to check it every now and then, just give it a stir. Obviously you don't want it to catch on the bottom or burn at all, so just keep it moving. And all you really want to do is cook out any last bit of rawness If you added too much water at the beginning, then obviously this is your chance to reduce the sauce to your consistency. So we'll leave that running and get set up for the next bit. Right, we've got all of our components ready for our chalupas. We've got our cooled salsa, some shredded lettuce with some lime quarters, some plain white onion with some coriander, chopped coriander running through it. This should be queso fresco, but we've got some dried out feta. Just leave that in the fridge to kind of dry out a little bit, and it takes the edge off the tang. Get the mildest feta you can, because obviously it is quite tangy. And then some leftover chicken warmed through. I think one of the nice things about this is that it's an approximation of a Mexican dish with stuff that you can get from the supermarket. So there's no weird ingredients in here that you'll have to find online. I've got some corn tortillas, some blue corn tortillas, some yellow corn tortillas, and I'm just going to get a bit more oil onto the flat top on the Ranger. Let that warm up just a little, and then get our tortilla in. I'm going to be able to do about 4 at a time here. So, just shut the lid and let those go. And what we're going to do is let them cook and crisp up a little bit, and then spoon some of our salsa on while they're still on the hot plate. And get yourself a serving platter, in our case a nice rustic metal, and have a spatula to hand. So I want to keep an eye on these. Just feel them. So these are still quite soft. Texture-wise, what you're looking for with these is that they are kind of rigid and nice and crisp underneath. So you get your spatula and just have a feel, and these are looking good. Now they're going to stay on, as I say, just for a little bit. So take some of our salsa and get that on there. Just a nice spoonful per tortilla. Obviously, depending on the size of your tortilla, you may need a little bit more, and I suppose also depending on the size of your spoon. Just get that on there and nice and spread out. If you want them really crisp, then you could do them one side and then flip them. But I quite like the contrast in texture of having one side nice and crispy and then the other side not quite as crispy. So I'm just going to shut the lid, leave them for 30 to 60 seconds, and we'll get them off. So these are nice and crispy, and obviously as they hit the cool air and start to cool, they'll crisp up even more. So just take them off. And obviously if you're making more of these, then that's the time at which you'd add a bit more oil and get some more on. But I'm going to start just putting these together. So we've got some warmed through leftover chicken going on top. And often the cry when you mention leftovers is, what's that? But trust me, it does happen. If you're cooking in volume, or if there's not that many of you to cook for, things like this are a really nice way of using up your leftovers. You can use leftover pulled pork, you could even use pulled beef if you wanted to. Get some of our shredded lettuce on there. A little bit of our pre-crumbled feta or queso fresco if you've got it. You don't want this to overpower, so you don't need too much. Obviously, you're familiar with the flavour of feta and that it's quite apparent when it's in something. So just a few little bits will do. And then finally, our white onion and coriander, just to top it all off. And then a wedge of fresh lime. Now if you're serving these, you'd probably be doing between 3 and 6 per person, depending on how much other food you're serving. And that wedge of lime will probably do about 3 of these. But just for presentation purposes, we'll do a wedge of lime per chalupa. And there we have it. Let's tuck in. Okay, I'm hungry, I'm ready to have a taste. Take a wedge of lime, give it a squeeze. There's no particularly graceful way to do this, but I'm not hugely known for my grace, so I'm just going to go for it. Napkin at the ready. It's got such lovely depth of flavour. You've got the kind of roasted veg in that salsa. Lovely soft chicken, the tang of the cheese. I love the rawness of the onion and the coriander that just cuts through. Such lovely combinations of kind of rich roastedness and a bit of smoke, and then some fresh rawness, and particularly the lime over the top just really sets it all off. Really good. So as I said at the start, these aren't authentic chalupas. It's a riff on it. One of the things I think this recipe has going for it is that all of the ingredients are available in UK supermarkets, and depending on where you are in the world, probably your local supermarket too. You can play with this as much as you like. The ingredients of the salsa, the protein that you use. If you're a vegetarian, you can make them veggie. The cheese that you use, the toppings. Like I said earlier on, Mexican food is so adaptable.